if you don't listen to me, we're getting a divorce. I can't stay married to someone who says such selfish things. I accept the divorce, even though my husband is acting smart and doesn't know what's coming next. My name is Emily. I've been married for 5 years, and I'm 35. It's just me and my husband. We've wanted children but haven't been able to have any yet. We thought about fertility treatments, but my husband didn't want to go through with it, so we left it to chance. If we don't have kids, it would just be us. After we got married, both of my husband's parents passed away, and we didn't have time for treatments. My husband is quite controlling. At work, he was a senior and often called me his foolish wife in front of others. He scolded me harshly if I made a mistake. This behavior didn't change after we got married. Though he seems like a bad person, he does have a gentle side. He gave me good advice when I was his subordinate and helped me when I was feeling down after my grandfather died. That support led us to start dating and eventually marry. Since getting married, I've stopped working and become a full-time housewife. My husband usually comes home after 9 p.m. because of his job. When he gets home, I greet him and help with his clothes, but he doesn't say much. I prepare dinner, and he eats quietly. After dinner, he goes to the bathroom, and I get his towel and underwear ready. He then heads straight to bed. He's always been quiet, and recently, his new job promotion seems to have made him even more tired. We don't talk much anymore, but I still trust and love him. He was there for me when I had a tough time. I lost my father in middle school and my mother when I was in my first year of high school. After that, my grandfather took me in and raised me with a lot of love. I wanted to show my appreciation by saving money from my job, taking him on trips, and sharing good times with him. I enjoyed spending time with my grandfather and wished he could stay healthy forever. But 3 years after I started working, my grandfather passed away from lung cancer. I was left completely alone. I knew I'd have to say goodbye eventually, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. I regretted not being able to do more for him or spend more time together. I was very sad and cried every night. My then boss, who is now my husband, noticed my sadness. He was kind and listened to me, telling me I had been through a lot and did well. I felt lucky to have him as a boss. Normally strict and intimidating, he was gentle and supportive during that tough time. I know he's a kind person deep down, which is why I wanted to stay with him. One afternoon, the home phone rang. It was my husband's younger brother, who I hadn't heard from in a while. He asked to speak to my husband. I told my husband about the call, and he answered the phone with a smile. His younger brother, 15 years younger than him, is someone my husband really cares about. He's been living happily with his wife for 2 years. But when my husband's tone suddenly became serious, I knew something was wrong. After hanging up, he told me that his brother had been laid off from his job. I was shocked, as I hadn't expected this at all. My brother-in-law is very different from my husband. He's kind, calm, and respectful. He always defends me when my husband is rude and apologizes for his behavior. I have a good impression of him and his wife. I wanted to help them in any way I could. I asked my husband if there was something I could do, but he gave me a sharp look and asked what I meant by something. I suggested to my husband that we should do something to help his brother feel better. He sighed heavily and said that I wouldn't understand because I haven't been part of the working world. He told me that it wasn't my place to suggest anything, and his harsh response surprised me. I meant well, but it seemed I had upset him. I asked him if I wasn't part of the family too, but he said I was just his wife, not his brother's family. His words hurt deeply. I had never seen him act so aggressively before. His brother being laid off must have been a huge shock for him, but his harshness was unexpected. He told me not to do anything unnecessary and walked out. After that, he became even more demanding and critical of me. He complained about the meals I prepared and compared me unfavorably to his brother's wife. His unreasonable behavior was confusing, and I didn't know what had changed. One day, my husband began sorting through things and filling garbage bags. I was puzzled but didn't interface because our relationship had become so strained that I didn't have the energy to talk to him. Then he told me that we needed to start packing because we were moving out. He said he was giving the house to his brother and his wife. I was shocked and confused by his decision. My husband suddenly decided to give our house to his unemployed brother and his wife. I asked why he was doing this out of the blue, and he shouted at me to be quiet. I pointed out that giving away the house didn't solve our living situation. He insisted that, as his brother was in trouble, he needed to help him, and we would figure out where to live later. I was confused and suspicious. My brother-in-law wouldn't just take our house without question. As I was about to confront my husband, he handed me divorce papers and told me that if I was only going to argue, I was of no use to him. He demanded I leave immediately. I was shocked by his sudden decision, but felt it might be for the best. I picked up the divorce papers and signed them. My husband watched me with a smug smile, which almost made me laugh at how absurd he looked. After signing, I reminded him that the house wasn't his to give away. It was my house, inherited from my grandfather. My husband was stunned. I explained that he had moved into my house before we were married because he didn't want to pay rent, and I've been paying the property taxes ever since. He had never contributed anything. My husband seemed flustered and said it didn't matter since we would soon be divorced. I told him that his behavior was unbelievable and selfish, and we needed to calm down. I let all my frustrations out on my husband. I loved him and thought he loved me too, but maybe I was wrong. I never expected our marriage to end so quickly. Emily, wait, this is a misunderstanding. Let's talk, he said. Talk about what? You were the one who wanted a divorce, I replied. I carefully put away the filled-out divorce papers, planning to submit them first thing tomorrow morning. My husband lay on the floor, dazed, and muttered, "No, this can't be happening." I told him coldly that this was my house and he needed to leave immediately. Once the papers were filed, we would be strangers. I felt no sympathy for him. Even when he cried and clung to me, he eventually left, resigned to his fate. The news of our divorce spread quickly at his work, and he was immediately looked down upon. Rumors about our divorce and his behavior during our marriage circulated widely. It seemed he had lost his standing at his company. I wondered who spread those rumors, but all I did was answer questions from his colleagues and subordinates. About 6 months after the divorce, I ran into someone I hoped not to see while leaving a real estate agency. My ex-husband. It seemed he had been waiting for me outside the agency. The situation was unsettling, and even when I tried to ignore him, he followed me persistently. Frustrated, I agreed to talk. Enough. If you have something to say, just say it, I told him. Emily, I've always despised you, he said. His sudden claim left me confused. He said he had been blaming me for his brother's job loss. Why would it be my fault? I asked. Since we got married, he said only bad things happened, like his parents dying and his injury. But his father was already sick before we married, and his mother was frail. His injury was due to his own clumsiness when he got drunk and fell. Despite this, he believed I was responsible for all his misfortunes. So you think I'm the cause of all your problems and that's why you hated me? I said. I always thought you were just awkward, but you actually despised me. I was frustrated with his refusal to take responsibility and his constant blaming of others. I couldn't believe someone like him could be a supervisor. I worried about his subordinates who might be unfairly criticized. He continued to tell me about his misfortunes even after our divorce. He showed me burns from a recent fire that destroyed his apartment, and he mentioned losing his wallet, making mistakes at work, and his brother's coldness towards him. Honestly, I don't feel sorry for you, I said. These are the results of your own actions. I have nothing to do with them. Please, Emily, come back to me, he begged. We've been together for so long. I took care of things when you were working and helped you when your grandfather died. Looking at him, trying to guilt-trip me, made me shiver. All your problems come from your own actions. Maybe you should look at yourself and stop blaming others. With that, I walked away, ignoring his desperate calls. My ex-husband was calling out to me, trying to get my attention, but I ignored him and blended into the crowd. About a week after our divorce, I got a call from my former brother-in-law. "Emily, well, you're not my sister-in-law anymore," he said. "I'm sorry, but I wanted to talk about my brother." He explained that the decision to give the house to his brother was made by my ex-husband alone. His wife and he had no idea about it. My former brother-in-law said he and his wife felt sorry for how my ex-husband treated me, and he thought it was good that we divorced. He wished me happiness. I thanked him, and he told me he found a job and was managing to get by. I was happy for him. He mentioned he planned to distance himself from his brother, which is why my ex-husband couldn't reach him. And now, my ex-husband, who had lost his wife and was estranged from his younger brother, was truly alone. I hoped he would understand the consequences of his mistakes, but for now, I needed to completely cut him out of my life. On the day I ran into my ex-husband, I had just signed a contract to rent out the house I inherited from my grandfather. It was too big for me, but I couldn't let go of the house full of memories. I preferred to have someone who wanted to live there. I decided to change my phone number, move, and completely sever ties with my ex-husband. At 35, I still have a long life ahead of me.